listen and keep learning. The Tom Daniels Show. Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniels Show.
You're listening to The Tom Daniels Show, and I am your host, Tom Daniel. I tackle some pretty complex topics here on The Tom Daniels Show, but today I want to talk about something that may seem, deceptively simple at first. Grits. That's right, grits, that often debated Southern staple, which probably makes you think, so what? What's the big deal about grits? Well, I want to go beyond the pop culture references and dive into the history and preparation of grits and tackle the cultural baggage that always rides along. Grits are a surprisingly powerful cultural symbol and can simultaneously be both an item of great pride and an item of derision. Remember the old TV show Mel? It had that cartoonish waitress character Flo, who used to insult people by drawling out, "Kiss my grits." Now, as someone who eats grits, I never understood why that was supposed to be funny. I just didn't get it. But I did get the movie My Cousin Vinny. In that movie, Joe Pesci was able to break down the testimony of a faulty witness by challenging how fast boiling water soaks into a grit. I will never forget that scene. And you can find many varieties of grits on grocery stores all over the South, but almost nowhere in the North. And when my wife and I lived in Iowa, as in major corn-producing Iowa, we only found one grocery store in town that stocked grits, and only one restaurant that served them, and that was Cracker Barrel. You'd think that people in Iowa would eat grits, but they don't. They eat oatmeal. Now, people love to make fun of grits and enjoy depicting grits consumption as something hillbilly and backwards. However, I've seen T-shirts in the South that make various acronyms for grits, such as Girls Raised in the South, and so forth. Grits are just such a Southern icon. I don't really think too much about all that because I just like to eat them. More than likely, grits are an evolution of an old Creek Indian sour corn soup known as sofki. Probably the two most important things to know about sofki that it was prepared in many different ways, depending on where you were, kind of like grits. And apparently it tasted pretty bad on its own, kind of like grits. And because of that, Southerners are forced to be highly and regionally creative when it comes to cooking grits to give them flavor. And most non-Southerners simply can't stand the taste of grits because they don't know how to cook them. Now, in their basic form, ground corn and water, grits taste terrible. A pot of grits by itself is not a food item. It can become cement if it's allowed to dry on ceramic surfaces, and I even once read about a woman charged with assault for throwing hot grits at her cheating husband. But if you actually want to eat them, you gotta give them flavor. There is a holy quadrinity when it comes to grits flavor, as far as I'm concerned, and that is salt, butter, cheese, and bacon. Now, salt is a must. Grits without salt could turn your taste buds inside out, because salt tends to ease the bitterness while enhancing the corn flavor. I've talked to a few non-Southerners who add sugar or cinnamon sugar to their grits instead of salt, but I just don't get that. Grits are not interchangeable with oatmeal. They are just not the same thing. Butter returns creaminess to grits that gets lost in the cooking. There's a huge difference between creamy grits and runny grits. The very nature of a grit, as we learned in My Cousin Vinny, is to absorb hot water, and at some point, all of the water will be absorbed, similar to cooking rice. Now, that's when grits start to harden and become inedible. Now, the initial temptation to avoid this difficult state of grits is to undercook them, which does leave them soft, but that's also known as runny. Runny is undercooked. Creamy, on the other hand, is cooked to perfection with butter acting as a softening agent. Now that's what you want. You're listening to The Tom Daniels Show. We'll be right back.
What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show. What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show.
Well, welcome back to the Tom Daniels Show. And the reason I'm laughing is because my band Mary Mac just got me cracked up. Now, whenever I tell Rip what my next topic will be on the Tom Daniels Show, he retreats with the band to create music specifically for that topic. Now, I use the same theme song each episode, but Mary Mac records it in a different style to match the topic. So this time, when I told Rip it would be a show about grits, they came back with this kind of, gangsta bluegrass. And this is the first time I've heard it. I don't know why, but it just cracked me up for some reason. As always, Mary Mac is the world's most perfect band. They just proved it again. Well done, Rip. Anyway, I was talking about grits and adding flavors and textures to regular grits in order to make them edible. And I just finished talking about salt and butter. And now I'll move on to cheese and bacon. Cheese and bacon, and that includes bacon grease, are the most common flavor and texture additives to grits. I remember my mother and grandmother, they had an aluminum container on the counter to hold bacon grease to be used in cooking. And whenever they cooked bacon, they would pour the leftover grease into that container and then use that grease in other cooking. Now, the bacon grease container was never refrigerated because they added bacon grease to practically everything they cooked, so it was used way before it could ever spoil. However, ground up pieces of actual bacon add the perfect texture to grits. And you just don't get that from bacon grease alone. Bacon grease provides plenty of flavor to be sure, but not texture. You get that from actual bacon and the wonderfully melted cheese that you can put in. Now, besides cheese and bacon, there are plenty of other options available for flavor and texture, and this is where people can get creative. Sausage and shrimp are both incredibly popular choices with all the fancy chefs on the TV cooking shows. I believe the pairing of shrimp and grits is a Carolina thing, if I'm not mistaken. And sausage and grits is more of a Cajun thing. Even Worcestershire sauce can be added to grits, but only after dark. Yes, grits are not just for breakfast. They are a fantastic, savory side dish for evening meals. Now, Southerners can be as creative as the old Creeks when it comes to ways of making something inherently nasty taste incredibly fantastic. Some other popular additives for grits include milk, pepper, Tabasco sauce, salsa, chicken, etc. My sister once told me she added tomatoes to her grits, and I asked, why? It's not a pizza. However, the basic rule, as mentioned earlier, is that nothing sweet ever belongs in grits. It's not oatmeal, so don't add sugar, honey, apples, blueberries, strawberries, or anything like that. That's just gross. Keep grits savory. Now, how about yellow or white? Grits can be made from yellow corn or white corn. Now, to me, white grits have a more delicate taste, and yellow grits have a more aggressive taste. Most grits found in the store are white grits. Again, either way suits me just fine. I don't care. Now, by the way, since corn is gluten-free, then so are grits. Now, unless the instant grits contain additives and preservatives with gluten, you can assume that grits are going to be gluten-free. But of course, if you have a gluten allergy, be sure to check the ingredients just to be sure. So what is a grit? And what's the difference between regular grits and instant grits? Essentially, grits are coarsely ground corn. Corn that's ground to a fine powder makes cornmeal, but Coarsely ground corn makes grits, and they're cooked the same way as rice, which is to simmer them in a covered pot of nearly boiling water until all the water is absorbed. Now, regular grits require about 20 minutes of cooking time, but you have to stir it periodically to prevent it from sticking and burning. Some people suggest that salt, butter, cheese, and bacon should be added early in the cooking process, while other people insist that the additives only go in at the end. I've tried both ways. I love either way. Doesn't matter to me. So, what are instant grits? Instant grits are basically pre-cooked grits that've been dehydrated, and they simply need hot water and stirring for a couple of minutes to reconstitute. They come in single-serve pouches and are not cooked on the stove. You pour the contents of the pouch into a bowl, add hot water, and stir. No cooking required. Now, in My Cousin Vinny, the man testifies that no self-respecting Southerner uses instant grits. Now, the breakdown of his testimony depends on the assertion that regular grits cannot be possibly cooked in only 5 minutes. According to Vinny, the rest of the grit-eating world requires 20 minutes to cook grits. And if the witness does not use instant grits, as he testified, then he must be using magic grits if he can only cook them in 5 minutes. Well, not so fast, my friend, because there is a third option. Regular grits take 20 minutes on the stovetop. Instant grits only take a couple of minutes in a bowl. However, quick grits only need 5 minutes, and they're not the same thing as instant grits. Quick grits are regular grits, but they've been ground more finely so that they're somewhere in between regular grits and cornmeal. Therefore, although quick grits are regular grits, they're cooked on a stovetop. They cook a lot faster. That entire scene in My Cousin Vinny would have fallen apart if the man had simply replied, "No, sir, I don't use magic grits, but I do use quick grits." Well, that's it. Thank you, everybody. This has been the Tom Daniels Show. Keep listening, keep learning.
Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniels Show. Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniels Show. Take a break from your usual routine and tune in to the Tom Daniels Show.